I used to struggle with skin tones a lot. Even watching step-by-step tutorials from pros, at some point I'd get lost and end up with the yucky, washed out results. I mean, what the fuck? I was really tired of that. I wanted to change it. So I studied the topic for months and I realized some very important stuff. So in this video, I'm gonna show you what I learned in these 8 months and why, how, and where you apply the color are the things that matters the most. Trust me, Steven. But before we dive into that, I need to tell you one important thing, aka what's the biggest difficulty with painting skin tones. For some reason, it's very easy for skin tones to look unnatural. My skin tones were bad, hit or miss at the least, even if they were blended and the highlights were placed in the right spots. And that's because there's not just one problem to solve with skin tones. And what most people miss is that there is a hierarchy. If you miss one, something will look off. Okay, but how do you figure out this hierarchy? Well, it might be subjective, but for me, on the very top of the podium is highlight placement. But didn't I just tell you I do volumes good, but my models still look bad? I'm confused. Well, I am too, Mark. Generally confused about life. Well, yes, I did say that, but that's because the hierarchy in skin tones is way more complex than a podium with the first, second, and third place. All these three factors kind of work together. And for me, if you don't know where to place your brush, you're gonna fail. Oh, how do you learn where to place the highlights? Well, many methods are recommended that I have recommended myself in the past, more or less. Taking a picture of the model with a black primer, watching the model under lamp, that's all valid, as long as you respect these rules. Number 1, no zenithal lighting. That's a big no-no. If you do it, I'll know and I'll find you and I'll destroy your pile of shame or steal it. In my opinion, the best light for lighting miniatures is frontal light from the above, with a degree of light hitting the model from as little as 14 degrees to maximum of 45 degrees, I'd say. And rule number 2, when you take a picture, you need to have the light in the same angle and find the correct place for your phone or camera to sit. So you'll take a pic and you'll know the volumes. That's simple, right? That solves the problem, right? Yes, but there is many limitation on this. And let's be honest, taking an accurate reference picture is pretty hard. And you will never gain a deep understanding of shapes and light and what's going on your model if you keep just doing this. You're always gonna be copying and relying on taking pictures and stuff like that. And when you want to introduce more complex lighting, it's gonna be even more overwhelming because it's actually hard to take reference pictures. If you want to really be free of doing anything you want with your model, you need to study how light interacts with the surface. And the key of understanding this is not just looking at the shapes, which is what most people are telling you to do, but most importantly of all, looking at the planes of the shapes, because then you can understand which of these planes are fixing the light and which are turning away from the light going into the shadow. This will allow you to change light direction and paint the back of the model without many struggles at all. You'll be free like a wind. Okay, but how do you learn that though? It's time for me to show you. Started with the base coat of black red plus brown sand, which is the most reliable colors for skin tones on a more yellowish side. I chose this golden angle and marked it on my plinth base. Next up, I want to mark the planes on each shape. Before I do that, I need to use brown sand to block like 85% of the skin, leaving out just the areas that are very deep creases of the skin. This all box set of ogres was kindly sent to me by Ars Manufactoria, store from a nearby city called Brescia, Pota. And pretty soon I'll have some discount codes for all the EU painters. Highlights in skin is kind of more complex than other materials in our model because we kind of need to connect all the shapes, creases, and muscles in order to make it feel like it's actually organic. It's not mechanically separated. Otherwise, it will be weird and unrealistic, especially muscles, abs. You need a real understanding of the shapes.
Here I'm using this step to paint a foundation of these connections between layers. Next, I mix radium splash with brown sand in a 2:3 ratio, and I start looking at the planes of the shape present in the muscles. Now when the form starts to turn away from the light, I stop highlighting. Now I absolutely make sure that the layer below is clearly visible. That's important for later. I want to cover around 70%, and then I can blend a bit on the edges where the two layers meet. Transforming the shapes into planes is what will give you a deep understanding, a real understanding of the volumes and where to place highlights, and not just relying on copy from images and reference pictures, just a real deep understanding of how the light interacts with the shapes.
This topic is quite difficult to sum up and put it in a YouTube video, and nobody probably would watch it. You don't need to learn physics of light to paint good highlights and shadows, but you do need to simplify things and keep only what's actually important. And that's what I did in my brand new course, The Planes System. The course is 4.5 hours long. Not because I explain boring physics of light and how it refracts and refracts and blah, 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 but because I show you how it works put into practice with different armies and different models in the easiest and most accessible way possible. And no second is wasted. You'll hear my sweet, pleasant voice bringing down every single step and decision. You'll also learn 3 different painting approaches to go from sketch to fully painted model. So if you're tired of struggling with this and want to fix it once and for all, check it out at the link in the description down below. With that link, you'll still have access to a pretty great discount. Please remember, this is all for my child and she needs to eat, okay? Anyway, so after I'm done with all that, I can now blend and I'm done, right? Well, yes, but also there's a missing piece. No pros ever mentioned or reveal, at least not very clearly and in an accessible way, because I really have to dig like hell to figure out this piece of information. So what do you do? How do you figure this out? Well, this is all about what's at the second place, which is how you distribute color. But what does that mean? You're used to paint with high contrast, so they tell you more contrast. I tell this myself. But in skin tones, this distribution needs to be done really carefully and quite differently. Let me go back to what happened to my failed attempts in order to explain to you how this works. Imagine you have a cup to fill. I call it your ego cup. This is the cup that you need to fill in order to be happy with the results you achieve in your painting. Skin tones, you have like a champagne tower, for lack of better term, where you have to fill a series of cups in order to fill your ego cup. If one doesn't overflows or stays empty, the next one fill out and your ego cup will be empty as well. As dry as our skin during a sandstorm. I'd fill the volume cup and let it overflow, thinking I could just move on to technique and blending. But I wasn't really aware of the second cup, the cup in the middle. I was missing something very important. Without the middle cup, I couldn't get my ego cup to fill. I need my ego, okay? So to solve the problem, we need to figure out the second cup, which is also in the second place in the hierarchy. The third is technique. Color distributions allows us to maintain a natural skin tone with saturation, keeping the very deep shadows only in 5% of our skin tones. If you have too much shadows, it's gonna feel unnatural. If you have too much highlights, it's gonna feel unnatural and it's gonna be kind of washed out. So the key here in color distribution is having enough middle tone. The middle tone maintains the actual color of the skin, the vibrancy and saturation. So here's how I would do it.
I would select 2 or 3 midtones according to the color that you want the skin to be, aka orangey or yellowish or reddish. I would then select 2 shadow colors. The first shadow color I used as a base coat where I build up on it, and the second shadow I'm just gonna put it in the like 2/3% of the model, just in the deep creases to give that contrast. The last middle tone that I would pick would be to pick out the micro volumes, so separate this smaller muscle finally. So in this step, I'm finally doing that, separating the smaller muscle. And of course here you're gonna make mistakes, and as I did, it doesn't matter how much you learn and improve, there's always gonna be unplanned stuff. If you see that there's too much white and too much desaturated color and you're kind of losing your midtones, don't worry, because you will be able to glaze it in. Some of that black red mixed with a brown sand, and you'll be able to get back a bit of that saturation and color. And the final highlight is quite important, but again, be very, very careful with it. You can go very bright with your skin tones, but again, be careful. Never lose your midtones. And if your skin tone is more yellowish, you can use ice yellow for your maximum point of highlights.
After all this, the last step is technique, which means basically blending, brushstroke, and refinement. It's up to you how much you want to refine your model, how much you want to leave the brushstroke in, Mark Muscon style, but a bit of blending, probably you're gonna have to do it. Yeah, but what if you don't know where to start with the blending techniques? What is the right blending techniques for these, or what is the right blending techniques for you? We have a compilation here, just for you, so you can figure out what's the best technique that works for you. And I'll see you there. Or you see me there past me, but it's like multiple years